It's time to rock and roll at the Circuit Paul Ricard for the first of two races this weekend, the second round of the 2023 GT4 European Series. What a venue, what a location, what a story is brewing already. I'm Jake Sanson, beside me Ben Constanduros. After a thrilling pair of qualifying sessions, our two races today and tomorrow are definitely going to add some spice to what is already a very tasty dish of a championship. And after qualifying, we know we're going to be in for a very exciting race. 21.6 degrees air temperature at the moment. The track temperature has been brewing rather nicely, but the humidity has been rising. We're not entirely sure what the weather is going to do over the course of the day. One thing we are pretty certain of, though, Ben, it should stay mostly dry for this race at least.
We should be okay, shouldn't we? I think a bit later on in the day, perhaps for the start of the 6 hours, it could be a bit more spicy. But for the moment, weather is set fair, pretty similar to what we saw in the qualifying sessions this morning. So these guys will have good information. And there is our pole man. Oh, sorry, second position car for the run down into turn one. All French lineup in the Alpine. Further back, though, we've got Constantine Lachenau on the front row on the pole with Gemma.
Constantine, we were talking a little bit earlier on about how challenging qualifying was with so much traffic. And it was a little bit of luck, but also a fantastic pace that got you here on pole.
Yeah, my teammate did an incredible lap, really incredible lap. The team's done an amazing job the whole weekend. We're starting off the best position possible, so it could have been worse. And so now we're really happy. Now, obviously, you've got to stay calm, stay focused. We know what we got to do, and I mean, the race is still long. We know how many things can happen in the race, so yeah, we'll just have to do our best, put everything together, and yeah, hopefully it'll turn out well.
Hopefully that smile will still be there at the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a good opportunity for these guys to turn things around after, let's be fair, a tough race at Monza for them. It didn't exactly go according to plan, but it's definitely been fast out of the blocks for this team. They look like they've got renewed confidence, renewed vigour, and hopefully a very fast car underneath them.
Etienne Shelley and Antoine Potti, third position on the inside for turn one, behind Constantine Lachenau and Victor Erich, with Paul Chapeau and Simon Termont in the Alpine that we were seeing just a few moments ago. Alongside them on that front row will be the first of the Pro-Am cars, Grégoire Gilbert and Christophe Amand. Gilbert, obviously the pro in that car, he will start the race. So anybody who qualified in Q1 will be the starting drivers, and they will be the pros in a Pro-Am lineup. Or obviously if they're a silver or in the AM, they are both silvers and AMs. We have, let's not forget, the 3 classes in the European Championship. We've also got 2 classes in the Scandinavian Championship that joins us this weekend. The Scandinavians are distributed across the grid, though. They're not at the back in their own place.
No, indeed. It's going to be an interesting one as we look at Grégoire Gilbert with the Santalog Junior team, that they're starting alongside Etienne Shelley and Antoine Potti in the ex-Swift Toyota. Etienne will speak in French with Gemma down on the pit straight.
Etienne, c'est la deuxième année en GT4 ici avec nous. Chaque année, j'ai l'impression que ça grandit le grid. Il y a beaucoup de voitures.
Oui, c'est ça. Effectivement, avec l'expérience, on apprend beaucoup à chaque course, chaque échec, on se relève et puis on s'améliore forcément. Ça va de mieux en mieux, et avec 2 nouvelles équipes différentes cette saison. Donc très content d'être de nouveau sur la grille.
Merci bien et bon courage pour la course.
Merci beaucoup.
Just a quick translation for you there, Etienne, saying how each year they learn more and more, each race they learn more and more, and things just getting better and better, and he's delighted to be here and to be learning so much and growing with this championship and others that he's doing.
With 2 different teams as well this year. This car run by Swift events, racing events that put together track days and stuff across France, and that is different, although it's the same car, a different group of team to run that particular machine. So we've Constantin and Benjamin Lariche. Now, interesting story on this car that was so successful last time out. That's had an engine change between free practice and qualifying because they were overheating during the practice sessions. So that super fast, super efficient engine that we saw in Monza singing along and giving them all the pace, now completely different in that Audi.
Yes, indeed, and that will make things a bit of an interesting challenge for them. One of the things we said we were going to get to the bottom of ahead of race one was the Bachmann siblings outfit. They were listed as Pro Sport Racing in Monza, which they were. They're not now. They're with Racing One, a completely different team. Pro Sport Racing were running them at Monza purely as a guest start to prepare for the GT4 Germany Championship, and they wanted to wish the Bachmann siblings all of the best. So down at the position for Robert Cansani is Gemma Scott.
Robert, on est sur la troisième ligne de départ ici. Ça va être un peu difficile, premier virage.
Non, normalement, troisième ligne, ça devrait être pas mal. C'est derrière que ça risque de se compliquer. Après, au Castellet, là, on a la chance d'avoir une belle piste avec beaucoup de dégagement. Donc, même s'il y a un peu des embûches et des sacs au départ, ça devrait bien se passer pour tout le monde.
Mais merci, bonne course.
Merci.
Well, it's the cars behind him that are going to find it difficult as they go into turn one. And he's delighted with having such a beautiful circuit here in the Castellet.
Yeah, Gemma just asking if it was a good place to be or not. Was he going to get caught up in shenanigans? And row 3, you'd hope that the front 2 rows have kind of spaced out and there's a bit of space to wiggle. But if you don't make a particularly good start and get swallowed up by this massive grid of cars, over 50 in total, then yes, there's certainly going to be some shenanigans. Although in the Lamborghinis just a few moments ago, we had a spinner, but we got most of our cars through until the last 10 laps of the race.
Well, Robert certainly won't be distracted by his son's antics over in Rudby in Denmark today, who is racing in his finals earlier this afternoon. Now, Robert can focus on the speed car team outfit and their preparation. One of the squads that's worth keeping an eye on is our Scandinavian guests, Emil Skadas, starting the Toyota Gazoo Racing Sweden car from 6th position on the grid. Very impressive for our guests to be right up there in the sharp end. And they are a good 20 places higher than any of the other GT4 Scandinavia teams. So Emil Skadas, the former Gearbox European champion of karting at KZ2 level, clearly up for a scrap, and here he is. This is the first time we've seen him in GT4 in the European Series, and he's definitely out to prove he's not just great in Scandinavia, he's a hot property for the future.
It's a Pro-Am entry though, so he shares the car with Hubert Ullmann, and he is the AM part of that. So in the second half of the race, the AM drivers will have to jump aboard these cars, and that's when it all really shakes up quite a lot. What the Pro-Am teams want is a clean race where they can build an advantage with no safety cars. So when the AMs get in, they can absorb some of that gap that has been created. But this is a Scandinavian entry. They have a fully AM category and a Pro-Am. And as you say, Emil Skaras right up there on row 3 of the grid.
So things are definitely going to get quite spicy for our competitors now as they gear up for the next chapter of this 2023 championship season. It's been a very exciting start to the year. Certainly at Monza, we had 2 very exciting and very different races. The speed car team were able to come through and take the victory in silver and overall in the first race. The second race was then won by Michael Schrey and Gabriele Piana in the Hover Racing Bonk Motorsport BMW. In the Pro-Am category, it was a double victory for the Code Racing Alpine squad of Antoine Leclerc and Loic Villigière. They came through for the win in both races. And it was a similar story in the AM category for the Aviat Avatar Porsches of Julien Piguet and Alban Veruti. Now, on that note, Julien Piguet is not here this weekend. It's purely Alban Veruti driving on his own. So he's going to have to work incredibly hard to make it 3 out of 3.
And on that, because they have to come into the pits and all the other teams will be changing their drivers, Veruti does need to get out of the car and then re-enter the car during the compulsory pit stop. And there will be a pit stop time penalty added to his for not having a second driver added to his time within the pits. And there is a minimum pit stop window that all of these drivers will need to conform to, which is 88 seconds.
There you go. So that gives us a little bit of an indication as to how things are going to progress. And we have the 2 minutes board already gone up. The grid is now clearing as we gear ourselves up ready for the most exciting GT4 race you are going to see in the world today. So many incredible battles to come, and certainly for the men on pole position, an opportunity to set the record straight. It all went terribly wrong at Monza. Neither race saw Victor Weyrich or Constantin Lachina in the Racing Spirit of Le Mans car finish the race. So this is an opportunity to kickstart their season. Forget Monza, it's ancient history. It's time to go to battle and time to go for the W.
large group of GT4 cars, all sounding and looking different, rolling down the main straight here in Paul Ricard. It's such an impressive sight, such an incredible collection of cars, and especially being here in France in Paul Ricard with GT4, very, very happy indeed.
So here we go through the starting grid. It is the Racing Spirit of Le Mans Aston and the Autosport Alpine on the front row, from X-Swift in the Toyota and the Santadog Audi on the second of the grid. Then Team Speed Car alongside the Toyota Gazoo Racing Sweden machine number 290. Then we have the East Side Mercedes alongside the BCMC East Side Mercedes along. It's going to be an all Mercedes BCMC fourth row. WNS Porsche and Elite McLaren on the fifth row. Then the Borisat Automotive BMWs. Juliet on one side, Bessler on the other. The leading AM car, the Autosport Alpine of Hurgon, alongside Gal Castelli in the CSA Audi. Then it's Antoine Leclerc, double winner at Monza in the Pro-Am Alpine, alongside the NM Racing of Philippe Vava. Then Veruti, the AVR Avatar double winner at Monza, alongside Alexander Heidfig in the Allied Porsche, the Hoffa BMW of Schrey, and Voisin in the GPA Racing. Then the Mirage Aston of Jamie Day, alongside Kevin Jimenez in his GPA Aston on the 11th row of the grid. De Sadelaer will start for the Code Racing Alpine. Safronov will start for the NM Mercedes. Akhil Rabindra for Racing Spirit of Le Mans alongside the LSP Competition of Fabricant Brichet. Then it is Roos in the Alfab, the Swedish McLaren, and Noah Abramczyk. Then Josh Radican's McLaren, Ekelczyk in the Sorg Rennsport Porsche, Bouveng in the MBLR, and then it is Papadopoulos in the NM Mercedes, the American. Monti in the Armada Mercedes and the Overdrive Porsche of Lefterov. Then Dominici in the Chazelle Alpine, alongside Raponge in the V8 Chevy. Hedberg in the Toyota Gazoo Sweden, Martin in the Full Motorsport Audi, Roche in the Speed Car, Xavier in the all-new WNS Motorsport Car number 442, Carton way down in 41st in the Mirage Aston alongside Jessica Bachmann, then Beltoise in the Santadog Junior, Pure in the AGS, Lopez Gutierrez in the Santadog, and Stegman in the TSR Team Spirit Aston. Giacomo in the Centro Porsche Ticino, alongside Gulberg in the Auto Racing Machine, Trizoldi in the W&D BMW, Zonev in the Overdrive Porsche, Dort in the Sorg Rennsport, Bard in the Gela Razon car for Porsche, then Richnas in the Mercedes, Alberg in the Toyota, and at the back of the grid, it'll be the AGS of Parisi and the Allied of Christensen. 56 cars all gearing up for the start. This opening lap of the race, really critical. Everybody needs to keep themselves out of the wars, keep themselves out of trouble. You've got to have as clean a start as possible, particularly here at Paul Ricard, because you make a mistake here, that's a long lap to get you back to the pits without doing more damage to your car.
And you say 56 because we actually did not have 56 in qualifying. 55 cars were out in qualifying. Christiansen, who starts in the back row, has been allowed to start due to being participating in free practice, but they did not take part in either of the qualifying sessions. And Parisi in the 89 machine for AGS events has also been allowed to start for the same reason. They did get a lap time in, but they also had an issue with their Aston Martin. So the full complement will take the start, which is unlike what we saw in Monza. And actually, usually we do lose one or two in free practice or qualifying. But so far here in Paul Ricard, all the categories have behaved themselves well.
So as we gear ourselves up ready at Le Castellet, the Circuit Paul Ricard is going to ring out to the fabulous speed and incredible agility of these GT4 cars. The European Series continuing in fine stead. Two different winners from the two races last time out, unless, of course, you are talking about the class winners. It was a double victory in Pro-Am for Alpine in the Code Racing Development Squad, and it was a double AM victory for AVR Avatar. Can they repeat it? Can they return to the top spot? It's going to be a tough ask for Speed Car to return to the winning position in their Audi, and very much so for the Hoffa Racing BMW in this race. Perhaps in race 2 tomorrow they could, but it's looking likely that we'll have 3 different race-winning cars in the first 3 GT4 European Series races of 2023.
And that's pretty usual in GT4. That's exactly how it works out. The balance of performance is so good. It really is margins, very fine margins, where you end up either victorious or not. Of course, the 3 categories to watch out for in the main European class, the 2 other categories from Scandinavia. Plenty of interest across our field as they come to the final final corner.
Technical flag already for the Alpine Code Racing development car. That's Hugo de Sadelier, who is battling for the silver victory. So that's a real problem before the race has even got underway. They come off the final turn. The lights are on. When they extinguish, we'll be racing. Here we go green at Paul Ricard, and it's a perfect start from Weyrich. Ponti's got a terrific start in the Toyota as well. He's going to draw level and actually pull in front of Budko up. He may even get a shot to go for the lead itself. On the inside, he has. Perfect start from the Toyota. They've both managed, the men in third and second on the grid, to split past the Aston. Couple of drivers running wide, and there's already some shenanigans through the first chicane. But what a fantastic start from Antoine Ponti in the X-Swift Toyota. He has already made his way through and leads as the rest of the field squabble their way down the drop. But it's the Toyota out front. Looks like Weyrich has managed to get his way back past Podkahab in the Alpine, and that is one of the speed cars. That's got to be Lariche, who's worked his way through into fourth position as the field desperately tries to stay out of trouble at the bottom end of Sector 1.
Everyone's still facing the right direction, though. That's key. No spinners in the first couple of corners. And what an incredible start from Antoine Ponti. Just pressed that accelerator just a fraction earlier than the guys ahead of him, gave himself the momentum, and he's got confidence as well in that Toyota to really lay it on the line in the first half of the lap. So he's got an advantage. So he's not under pressure as Benjamin Lariche has a sniff on the little Alpine for third position. Could find a way through there.
Everybody trying to mix it. Careful, boys. We almost had a little bit of door banging there between the McLaren and the Audi. The Alpine is going to nip through. I think that is the co-development car that's just nipped through. But they've picked up a technical flag before the race has even started. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the first few minutes. Oh, there is more problems. That's one of the speed car Audis, and that's in bits. And so is his combatant.
Right, it's the other speed car Audi, because we've got the speed car Audi at the head of the field. So that's the 83 car of Hugo Roche, I'm afraid. And it did look like there was a decent amount of contact. So we go safety car straight away. And all of the drivers should be given that warning by their teams to slow down. Some side by side trying to work out who should go in front of the other.
It's a pair of Audis, and I think, well, the Sadelier has got a problem, which I think is a transponder. That's why he's been given the technical flag, because he's not transponding. It's Roche in the 83, but it's also Lopez Gutierrez in the 67. Those are the two cars caught up in that one, and unfortunately they are there at the chicane in Sector 2, and unfortunately those two Audis are, well, there's no other way to put it, in pieces.
Oh, well, that's a shame, because that's two colourful cars, isn't it? The 67 machine is run by Full Motorsport. Oh, no, sorry, that's the 46. So we have the rather colourful Full Motorsport cars, and we have the rather colourful Team Speed cars, and it is Hugo Roche in the 83.
I wonder if we're going to get another look at it, because it looks like it's happened quite deep into the chicane as well. It's gone into the right-hander. There is an Aston Martin having an issue there as well. So mechanical problems for one of the Astons. Is that Parisi?
Says 41.
Oh no, that's the 7, isn't it? Is that the car that was fastest in free practice 1? It is. It's Carton. Carton's had a mechanical problem.
Dante Raponge has come into the pits. Jester Bachmann has come into the pits as well. There were quite a few, maybe 6 or 7 cars heading to the tail of our timing screens, having been affected by, we've seen 2 of them, haven't we, on track, and we've got 2 registered in the pits. Yeah, I don't know if they're all in the same chaos, or whether we've had multiple incidents out there.
It looks like the AGS Aston of Mike Parisi didn't start the race in the end. So having been allowed to, they've not been able to, so problems there, and it looks as though the 2 Audis have ended up tangling at the chicane. Let's have a look at the replay now. We'll be able to go back and see how things have played out at the start. We want to have a look at what happened to the Toyota, because that was a fantastic launch. So as they come off the final turn, look at the Toyota, watch it in third position, just nails the throttle at the perfect time, draws level with the Alpine without any issue at all, and then has full confidence to just dive up the inside of Weyrich. Very late on the brakes by comparison. Look at that, Weyrich was cautious into turn 1. Ponti, nothing doing. He wanted the lead and he claimed it.
Plenty of cars off track though at turn 1, aren't they? They were quite wide, very much off track. So race control will have to have a look at who is gaining an advantage on the left-hand side as we look at it there. You don't really gain an advantage if you go wide on the outside on turn 1, really. And then down to 3 and 4.
This is where Lariche was quite confident. He managed to get the run there on the inside of Gilbert to hold on into a very neat position, and then Gilbert had a bit of a challenge from Di Fulgencio in the Mercedes. Everybody just trying to stay out of trouble, but this isn't where the contact happens. That happened a little further up. But I have to say, for those first few corners, despite a couple of drivers running wide, everybody kept it fairly ship-shape for that first part of the lap.
Dante Raponge was another car caught up and is now back out on circuit. So was in the pits and has now gone back out on the pits 51st. Unfortunately, the Bachmann Aston Martin looks as though that's staying in the pits for the moment. Still in the pits. All other cars are out on circuit. I think we've seen all other cars now. So we saw the 83 car and we saw the 67 car. They were stationary on circuit. We saw the 7 Aston Martin being pushed behind the wall. And then we've registered that Raponge and Bachmann were in the pits. So that kind of ticks off where all those various cars were, other than the 89 of Mike Parisi, who I think would have registered to be in the race by being on our timing screens. Otherwise, he'd have been a non-starter. But either way, he hasn't even registered a sector. So it might have been that he pulled off even before the start.
So Romain Carton, that's the mysterious one, because they completed Sector 2 on the opening lap. So they had a mechanical in Sector 3 on the opening lap of the race. And that's the car that was fastest in Free Practice 1 yesterday. So a very difficult start to racing for the Mirage team. And they are out before they even complete the opening lap. And it looked to me, looking at their sector times, it looked like it was unrelated to the contact that put the 2 Audis out of the race, because we saw Hugo Roche and Marc Lopez Gutierrez obviously out in Sector 2. But looking at the pace from Romain Carton in the Aston, that looks completely unrelated to me. Yeah,
it looks like he was completely on pace through Sector 1 and Sector 2, but then Sector 3 suffered a technical issue. And by being pushed behind the wall as well, you would suggest that it was an issue with that car, which is a real shame, because you say fastest in free practice, but also very, very strong in qualifying, both in qualifying 1 and with their grid position for race 2. So work to do for the team. They will work very, very hard on the car and make sure that it is ship-shape for tomorrow's race, which is around lunchtime.
Well, Hugo de Sadelier has brought the car from Code Racing Alpine back into the pits and had that checked over, that faulty transponder. It's working now. So they are now working, and that was the reason for that technical difficulty. They have now continued. Apparently there's an issue as well. We're looking at out on the circuit for the 46 car, I think it is, that's in difficulty. Now let's have a look at the slow-mo going through the first few corners of the start. Emil Scaras getting himself in the mix there in his first GT4 European race. That's a bit of a scary moment for him, but getting himself out, he had his elbows out, didn't he? He really wanted to mix it up with the regulars. And Bulatov just trying to stay out of trouble there as well.
I think that Scaras has shown that he can mix with the regulars. He's right up there. He stays up there. He's still in 9th position under safety car conditions. It's like the Allied Racing Porsche that's about to come into shot on the far left with a bit of damage, bit of bodywork flying off. So a tiny bit of contact in the early part of the race for the number 30, I think that is, Henrik Still. I love this slow-mo shot. So certainly when the cars get up to speed, the movement that they have going through this long left-hander, sliding across the circuit, not stuck down like you would expect from a Formula car or something with a lot more downforce. These GT4 cars move around over the surface of the road a lot, and it's great to spot in slow-mo.
When you look at them coming off this tight right-hander as well, you can see 3 on the deck and 1 in the air as they turn in on the wheels. It's really exciting to see the physicality of this tight, twisty section on the opening sector as drivers take a little bit more bravery. The Borusan Automotive BMW just knocking a few little bollards over out of the way. They've got a very momentous weekend, actually, because back home... No, not the bollard. Not on this occasion. No, the BMW squad from Borusan Automotive out in Turkey. They did such a good job in Monza that the national television channel of Turkey said, right, well, you did such a good job in Monza, we're going to show the rest of your season live on Turkish state television. So they are live on the national television in Turkey. And the whole team is so excited and so proud. They literally feel like rock stars when they go back to Turkey. So it's a big deal to them. And they wanted to put on a good show. They've made a relatively decent start. You know, Verke Bessler is still there in the top 10 at the moment. So they still have a decent opportunity. A few places lost for the sister car. Enzo Juliet down to 30th on the first lap. So they didn't quite have it perfect for both cars.
No, they've both... yes, that car really has lost almost 20 positions, hasn't it?
Yeah. And it does look like Jessica Bachmann is now pulled out of the race, so she's got out of the car. And I'm afraid that's game over for the Racing 1 Aston Martin. Very unfortunate. So Roche is out, Carton is out, Lopez is out, Jessica Bachmann is out. We didn't even see what happened to her. And Mike Parisi did not even start the race for the Aston Martin team from AGS Events. So a couple of things still to unpick. We haven't really seen what happened between the two Audis. We can only assume that too many cars went into too small a space, and that's what happens on the first lap of a motor race. So we'll pick up that if there is more footage of it. But at the moment, we just have to assume that they're out of the race. So Potty leads the way, Weyrich in second, Kauhap is in third position, and Gemma Scott is down in pit lane. And she is going to be talking to Loic Villigier, who is doing a grand job at the moment, watching Antoine Leclerc behind the wheel.
Loic, it's great to have you back with us for another season. It feels like every season the grid just gets bigger and more competitive. How are you enjoying it here at Paul Ricard?
Yeah, well, last year it was pretty good. We had a good car, but you know, with the crash in Imola, we had to rebuild it, and we didn't have the right setup, and we couldn't build the weekend the way we wanted to. But this year, great improvement with the car. You know, we're about 1 second faster than last year, so I'm really proud of the team, really proud of everything we've done during the winter, like in Monza, with winning both races, you know. But it's a really competitive field, and those guys gave us a 15-second penalty before the meeting, so I feel like some guys up there don't want us in the field, but we're gonna do everything we can to try and get on the podium, and I hope in first place in Pro-Am. So we'll see.
Thank you very much. Have a great race and a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
He talks about his 15-second penalty there. That's a success ballast, effectively. That's not a penalty just randomly plucked out to give to him because he's, I don't know. It's because they were so good at the first round, and the top three in each of the classes do get penalised. Slightly longer pit stops because of their success from the previous round. So.
Yeah, he didn't really paint that quite right. He made it sound like he was a victim rather than a winner. So, yeah, but absolutely, it's going to be really interesting to see what Loic Villigier and Antoine Leclerc can do. Incident in Turn 8 under investigation. Totally understandable, that one, because obviously we know that that's the reason the safety car is out, but the marshals are going to work very quickly. Of course, you know, that still plays out into the strategy of the race. We've nearly completed the first 15 minutes of racing, and the safety car has been out for the entirety of it. We're only about to complete lap 4, so that obviously plays into the strategy. Well, what that means is that it could make things very different for the drivers now.
Yeah, two different things. The impact of the professional drivers in the Pro-Am categories is much less because they're in the car right now and they're behind the safety car, so they can't create those gaps that they need to for their AM drivers. But in the second half of the race, the AM drivers won't have to deal too much with worn tyres. And with the temperature we've got here, with the abrasive surface, that was definitely a worry at the very end of the race. Now that we've got 15 minutes less of wear on the tyres, in theory, the AMs will have a more comfortable ride to the end.
So the X-Swift Racing Toyota is the leading silver and leader of the race as well. There is the Pro-Am leading car. That is the Santalok Audi. Gregory Guilvert. He will, of course, hand the field car over to Hamon a little later on. And it's definitely going very well indeed. So down in pit lane, it's going to be another interesting battle for Jacob Moll, who is down in pit lane with Gemma Scott. What has Jacob got to say?
Down here with Jacob Noel, car number 16. Jacob, you are currently in 5th in class. Talk to us a little about the restart that we're expecting imminently.
I hope it will go correctly for us, so we will maintain at least the position Philip had because he had a very good start, and I hope he will continue like that until the pit stop. We will stay on the track as long as possible, and then I will jump to the car and hopefully finish the race.
So he's just setting it up for you to bring it home, right?
Yes, it's my role today, and I hope I will fulfill my role today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Supporting role. He's really hoping for the GT4 European Series Oscar for Best Supporting Race Driver. All goes according to plan, then it should be perfectly straightforward, but best laid plans of mice and men. All easier said than done. There are a million cliches to choose from. There is Emil Skaras, 9th position on the restart when it comes, and that's going to be interesting to see what he can do in the Toyota Gazoo Racing Sweden squad. It is essentially the manufacturer-backed team of Swedish National Motorsport for Toyota Gazoo, isn't it? This is a fabulous team.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that's Toyota Gazoo Racing is the works manufacture part of it. And obviously, you have Toyota Gazoo Racing Europe that run the WRC car and the WEC car. But then in Britain, I think there's still the Toyota Gazoo Racing touring car. And that is not a European-based car or backed car, that's a British-based car. And this car is the Scandinavian-backed or Swedish-backed team for that Scandinavian Championship, which has its roots in Scandinavia, but will also be with us in Spa. So this is not very Scandinavia down here in the south of France, and neither is Spa-Francorchamps, but it does give them an opportunity and a greater relevance to give them confidence to then move into the European Series, kind of already knowing the regulations, knowing the tyres, knowing some of the circuits, and knowing the level that this is set. And as we can see from the 290, they would have absolutely no problems coming in here full time, qualifying well up there at the moment in 9th position and working well. Now, here's Veruti, the only man in the field to be doing it all himself today in the AM category. His teammate not with us this weekend, and so he will have to jump out the car. He'll have a small penalty for being a single driver. He'll get back in the car and do the second stint, but a big weekend's worth of work. Need to do that because they come here as the AM leaders of the championship.
Safety car in at the end of lap 6 it will be. So we'll get ourselves straight back into the battle once again. While battling away for the victory in the classes, Julien Brichet is obviously in the number 24 car, and he is down in pit lane watching along. Gemma is with him.
Julien Benchaud, ici français, c'est un home race pour vous.
Oui, effectivement, ici on est chez nous, c'est la course à domicile. Donc voilà, on va essayer de faire du mieux possible. Bon, pour l'instant, pour nous, ça démarre mal parce qu'on est assez loin, il y a un safety car. Voilà, donc on verra. On va attendre la fin de la course et voir ce que ça donne.
Merci, bon courage et bon course.
Merci.
Just a small translation there, of course, racing at home here in Paul Ricard for Julien, and very happy to be here. He said it's been a difficult start. They're currently in 25th, but they're hoping for things to improve after the restart from the safety car.
Yeah, a difficult start to the race for the Brichets, because obviously they were looking very strong indeed in qualifying initially, and then obviously they had the lap taken away from them, so they had to start a long way down. But up to 25th, definitely making good progress. So it'll be intriguing to see how they continue to make progress forward. The cars that are involved in the incident at the start have been swept away. The circuit has now been cleared, so we should be going racing again this time by with the Toyota from X-Swift Racing at the front of the field. It's going to be a late extinguishing of the lights on the safety car, because we were told the safety car was in at the end of this lap, but it does peel off. They'll come through out of the final turn and onto the home straight, and it's green, 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 green here at Paul Ricard as we go back into the race action once again in the GT4 European Series. Race 1, round 2, and it's a very exciting charge forward from Antoine Potti. Weyrich is going to get a good run in second position. Kauhab, Lariche, Gilbert, De Fulgencio, Bulatov, Stiel, Skadas, and Berke Bester in the BMW from Borusan Automotive. And they are all going to keep it nice and tidy through turn 1. Up the inside, that's the McLaren of Jack Mitchell, trying to get through on the inside of the Alpine of Antoine Leclerc. No space at all.
No, Leclerc's passed Mitchell at the restart there, so that's a really good reaction from the Code Racing Developments machine. And coming to follow through is Veruti. He's going to try and make 2 positions.
He's done it.
And he's done it. Lovely work. So some of these drivers were absolutely switched on at the restart, and others are only now getting back up to speed as Mitchell fights back on Antoine Leclerc at the far end of the circuit, coming on to the Mistral straight and gets that McLaren back ahead of the little Alpine. But meanwhile, both of them have now lost a position to Veruti, who is ready to go and still leads that AM category and pushing on hard. Potti has had Weetabix for breakfast. Other series available.
Certainly has.
Unbelievable restart. Head down at the start, head down at the restart, trying to build as much of an advantage as he can for his teammate.
I think there was a little bit of honey added to it as well. He certainly seems to have got out of the blocks like a jackrabbit as Alban Veruti further back moves his way up into now 12th position. And there is a good battle heading into senior. What can Lariche do to try and charge up as up the inside of Fulgencio? Had a look there, a little bit of a gap created by Gilbert, but he shut the door quite quickly. De Fulgencio has another crack at it in the number 4 car. Now he's going to get the opportunity on the inside line, but around the outside, Gilbert is still able to hold the Audi at bay. It's very nicely done, but the east side Mercedes just can't quite find the way through. This is the overall battle for 5th position, and of course it's also two different classes fighting for position. It's Pro-Am versus Silver, and still an interesting tussle. Emil Scalas is keeping himself nice and neatly there as well, trying to show. Oh, he's moved up a place, hasn't he? He's got past the Porsche of Still.
Yeah, he's up ahead, is still up into 8th position as Potty moves. Oh, there's Hartvig. And then the 55, that should have Lauren Hartgen. That's 17th position for Lauren Hartgen this season in the AM category with Alain Fuerte. Fully AM for Laurent, even though he's the professional driver for Alpine in developing the Alpine lineup and for racing and for the sports cars on the road. Jamie Day with the fastest lap of the race down in 21st position. The Aston Martin choice that we thought at the start of the weekend. Yes, we have an Aston Martin up in 2nd position. The next one down the list is down in 19th spot.
That is Bailey Voisin, who is at the wheel of that particular car. They were so strong in free practice 1 and free practice 2. They've not had it easy pretty much since the end of qualifying. Ever since then, it's been all about trying to maximize the opportunities for the other drivers out there. Still a nice battle. That's Philippe Varva now going to battle with Antoine Leclerc. Philippe Varva, the former karting star, grew up in Spain, has done a fantastic job continuing up the rise to sports car racing. Now really starting to embed himself as a serious challenger in GT4. Benjamin Lariche starting to hunt down Paul Cauharp in the Alpine, looking for his opportune moment. Just watch them as they come through the left-hander here. The car really kicks up in the air as they go through that first part of the curve, and it ends up being very nearly sometimes, depending on how you hit that curve, 2 on the deck and 2 in the air. So you've got to be careful of that. On the exit, Jamie Day under some pressure here as he comes off the turn. I think that is Akhil Rabindra trying to get past him, the Indian driver who was racing on home soil in the off-season. Nice little couple of challenges going through that turn. It's the 88, actually, of Safronov, so Day has actually got through past Safronov. Rabindra is behind them now, and just in front of them, we're watching Schrey in the number 2 car, and he's desperately trying to shake off the attentions of Bailey Voisin.
Our championship leader, Schrey, 18th spot only in the first race here. Second race with a much better qualifying from Gabriel Piana, so they should be higher up for the field. But let's not forget that we are about to open the pit window in a couple of moments' time, and then all of the performances that we're used to seeing in this first half of the race get ripped up, and we have second drivers doing completely different things. So we would expect that number 2 machine to move up through the field. There's another little challenge there from Lauren Hergon on Hartvig for 16th position. Again, 2 separate categories, but whilst Lauren Hergon sits behind Hartvig, Veruti, who leads the AM category, up in 12th position, is getting away.
I think Radican just got the move on Jimenez out of the final turn to move the McLaren forward. Indeed he did. 23rd position made up there for the Optima McLaren, so that's moved them, the Elite McLaren, I should say, sorry, slightly further forward. I'm thinking it's GT3. As they move their way further forward, Lariche again just trying to get one over on Cauharp, but he just doesn't quite seem to have that advantage through the turns. The Audi seems to be pretty quick in a straight line compared to the Alpine in front, but once they get to the turns, it's that nimble, quite fluid movement of the Alpine that the Audi just can't quite compete with. They really do know this place like the back of their hand, and that's why the Alpines are so strong here. You've got Hergon leading in class, and you've also got Cauharp right up in 3rd position. They're making full advantage as, oh, a little bit of a run wide there. The battle further back, that's Safronov trying to make an advantage there on Schrey. Has Schrey lost ground, or has Safronov made up a lot of ground? To try and see which way round that is, but Lariche in the speed car has now got pressure from the Pro-Am leader, Gregory Gilbert, trying to make up a position to move up into 4th position, and he's all over the back of Lariche in the speed car as they head into senior. Gilbert's got to stay hungry. Yeah,
it's Schrey that's lost about 2 seconds in the first sector alone, so he's dropping even further back. Maybe with a scrap with somebody else, he's lost 2 positions, and that it was him with Safronov down now in 20th spot.
So that's big problems for the championship leaders then, as Voisin, Day and Safronov all managed to pick up the pieces on the championship leader. But it's the ex-Swift Toyota that leads the way. Weyrich in the racing, Spirit of Le Mans, Aston Martin in 2nd position, and then it is the Alpine in 3rd. There is the battle for 4th position. It's 2 Audis, Speed Car versus Santalog, Benjamin Lariche versus Gregory Gilbert, Silver versus Pro-Am, and it really is going to be interesting to see if Lariche can hang on in front of pro driver that he is, Gregory Gilbert, who is not taking this line down.
I mean, Benjamin Lariche is a very, very strong driver as well. Was originally in a Pro-Am category car, but such as has his performance been over the last couple of years, he now very much is the silver in that lineup, and this is further back. Here is our championship leader, Schrey versus Safronov. Again, we're going to have Schrey on the inside line here, and Safronov to the outside. Aston Martin's ahead, battling. Jamie Day getting past Voisa.
Come again, and there's the McLaren trying to hunt down another competitor. That's Radican going after Jimenez, so they've swapped positions back again. And Day, oh, just a little bit of paint trading between Day and Voisin, so they've had their little bit of a moment. Here's the opportunity to come back at him. Oh, Day left the door open, and they bang wheels. Goodness me, they've got to be so careful, and they're going to be completely hoodwinked here by Safronov, who actually drives right off onto the curbs in the attempt to get away from these two battling Astons. And there's damage. There's damage for Voisin. They hit each other too hard there. He tried to turn left, and the car wouldn't do it.
Is it a puncture or is it suspension? A puncture you can fix, and we do have the pit lane window open, but obviously suspension will be day done. There was one too many kisses, wasn't it, basically?
It was in the right-hander. That's when they really... I would love to see that again, because you could just see a massive amount of impact between the two Astons at exactly the wrong point on the car that would really have affected certainly the left front of Bailey Voisin's car, and that is why you end up having those little issues there trying to turn left, because the car just doesn't want to turn left, essentially. So now we're going to come into this open pit window section. This is where things are going to get quite interesting. Who is going to blink first? If I'm Antoine Potti, you've got a bit of a gap on Weyrich, about a second and a half or so, and then another second over to Kauhab. Is there a percentage to pit in earlier, or wait to see how it all unfolds?
No, because if you pit now, you're not going to come back out into clear traffic. You're going to come out into the slower cars. So the guys at the head of the field are really forced to wait until some of the guys further back have pitted to create holes to allow these guys to get in and out cleanly.
So here we are, Day versus Voisin. Watch, look, Day hesitates, Voisin sees the opportunity, bang, Day turns in. That was big, wasn't it? And then Safronov thinks, right, the two of you are going to go wide, so he absolutely monsters the curb in the bid to try and out hoodwink both of them, and then obviously Voisin tries to turn left, and the car really doesn't want to do it. Interesting stuff between the two. Is this Day getting in more battles? It is indeed, as he tries to go for the move on the inside there of the 26, I think that is, of Akhil Rabindra. And Rabindra manages to get away. There's the McLaren of Josh Ratican. So I think Day's got a problem with that car as well. It's slowly starting to fall apart. The thing is, that was a big impact between the two of them. I mean, it was slow speed.
Well.
Yeah, it was wheel to wheel, slow speed, and it would have hit at exactly the worst possible angle for the suspension arm geometry. That would have been a very nasty moment for both cars. But it's pit lane galore.
And look, it's all the guys further down the field that are making a little bit of space for the guys at the head of the field. But ultimately, we've got in the Pro-Am lineups, you're not going to see people pit until the very end of the window to keep that Pro in 1, 2, 3 laps longer. With the Schrey and Piana car, they think that Piana is the stronger of the two, and from qualifying you would suggest that's the case today. And so they've got Piana in early, and now let's see if he can benefit. Nice clean track for that car to get a couple of laps without being distracted, and see how far up the field they can jump once everybody has pitted.
And into the pits, that is one of our Scandinavian visitors. That's the 278 car, shared by Bard and Skug. And they were down in 48th position, but still, obviously very important to keep an eye on everybody in the fray. There is the leading car, Antoine Potti. He's getting ready to hand the car over to Etienne Chili. I tell you what, even though that Toyota is bouncing around a lot on the curbs, it looks fairly planted, doesn't it? The back end's not coming out, it's not overdriving, it looks pretty stable.
He's able to really ring it, isn't he? From the very moment that green flag came out, he was pushing so hard. I wonder whether he would have kept it up through a full half-an-hour stint if he hadn't had the safety car period, because he just seems so aggressive, proper sprint racing aggressive.
And considering how reasonably, you know, they did a reasonably good job last time out in Monza as well. They had a fairly good weekend. They came up with a 10th position finish in race 2, but this is way better, way better. A great opportunity for them to now really put some decent points on the board. And it's certainly going to be the third different car, but also the third different manufacturer to win in the first 3 races of the year, because we had Audi win the first, BMW win the second, Toyota looking good to win the third. But there's a long way still to go. Aston Martin and Alpine, 2 other manufacturers that haven't won a race so far this year, are right in the mix to try and take it off them.
Harp was really under pressure from Benjamin Lariche there on the few corners that we saw. The last laps for the top 2 in the 13s, but then Lariche, Gilbert in the 14s, and the rest of the field in the 14s. There's a bit of a difference between the performance of the top 2 and the rest at the moment. And I do think that Lariche has got better pace in that Audi if he could clear the Alpine, the little Alpine in 3rd position.
Well, Voisin did make that car come back to the pits eventually, but unfortunately it's been in pit lane for 3 minutes. I have a feeling that it might just be game over for the number 48 Aston Martin. It was very tough, the contact that he had with the Mirage of Jamie Day. When you hit those parts of the car that hard, you're not really going to have much more to play with, certainly on that particular part of the car. The left front would have been badly damaged on Voisin's car. The right front would have been badly damaged on Jamie Day's. Is that McLaren going to size its way through? It is. That was brave on the inside. That was threading the needle at a very tough part of the braking zone, and very nicely handled indeed there from Jack Mitchell. He's at it again.
Both of these McLarens look really strong in this part of the race. Radakin and Mitchell are able to really lean on the car in a way that everyone else looks a little bit tentative around them, but they're just nailing it.
There's something about the McLaren in the braking zone and then the application back on the throttle. It really seems to do that stop and blast very effectively. Now they're going to get a good run off the turn again. This is going to be Radakin taking on the BMW up in front of him.
Oh, I think he's actually going to lose a place here to Veruti.
The leader's in. There we go. The leader is in. So it's pit stop time for the Toyota, as in comes Antoine Poty. Etienne Chilly is going to take over. As we can see, I think that's one of the Bresson Automotive drivers gearing up and getting ready. And now the battle for the lead. Well, it's Weyrich who leads the way. And this is now, all of a sudden, the battle for 2nd position. But it's not just 2 Audis in the mix. They've caught up to Paul Ricard in the Alpine, and they are going to try and get through before the pit stop.
Yeah, I do think Paul is struggling at the end of this stint. They've got a back-marking BMW in the mix here. Meloni, the 53. He's 1 lap down, the car on the far left-hand side of the screen, but he has been the cork in the bottle for the last couple of corners for all of these guys to try and get past, and it has concertinaed up. Here's Benjamin Lariche to the outside of Paul Ricard. Before they swap drivers, he wants to make his impact on this race and couldn't quite get the speed car out. He slowed down enough through the Montreal chicane to make it stick there, or even an error, I think, through the second half of the chicane may allow Greg Gilbert back onto the tail.
Very strong from Paul Ricard. He wasn't hesitating at all there on the inside on the defensive move, was he? He was really keeping it together. Meanwhile, there are problems in the Audi of Anthony Beltoise. Pit lane speeding is the cause of their investigation at the moment, so potential problems and a potential penalty coming the way of the number 14 crew car.
He's still in the pits, so that literally has been a message 1 minute ago as he came into the pits. He's got pinged, the message has gone to race control, they've typed it up, and that's even before he's left pit lane. It's on our screens.
That shows you how fast they work.
Well, how defined it is, I think, moreover.
Well, indeed. I mean, good to see that the race officials are hot on the case.
Not much you can investigate once somebody sent you a screenshot of the speed gun saying a certain speed.
I think it's one of those game, set, and match moments, isn't it? There is the number 3, Benjamin Lariche, and he's got clear track in front of him now because Weyrich and Kauhap have come into the pits, as has Gregory Gilbert and Emil Scaras. So this is now Lariche on his own for a lap.
Yes, but doesn't the pit lane window shut in a minute and a half's time?
They're pushing it, aren't they?
I'm not sure he can do another lap before coming into the pit when it's closed.
I mean, they're definitely flirting with it. If they miscommunicate and they leave him out too long, then that is definitely going to be a big problem. Everybody else pretty much in the top group that hasn't already pitted are all in pit lane this time. Has there been a miscommunication with the speed car team, or have they just decided to go for the gamble and hope that it's going to be okay?
Etienne Shelley now aboard the Antoine Poty car. They've pitted and done their pit stop in 1 minute 33.6. So they gave away 5 seconds to where they needed to be in pit stop. I said 88 seconds is that minimum time. So 1:28 is what you want. A 133 is not what you want. So they could find themselves under a bit of pressure once it all shakes out.
The big problem is going to be Victor Weyrich. Have they been able to leapfrog past the X-Swift Toyota? The pit lane is a big bustle of activity, and that can be very tricky getting out of the pit lane again. Got to make sure you don't have an unsafe release into traffic. You've got to pick your moment. Victor Weyrich and the Racing Spirit of Le Mans team do it perfectly. Not going to impede anybody. They're going to come out onto the circuit in front of the Toyota, but is it going to be enough to hold it as the blinkers come on? It's perfect from the Aston Martin crew. They've been able to get the Racing Spirit of Le Mans team out in front of the Toyota. That's why you go a little bit further into the race, essentially, when you've got a clear bit of road to play with, and that is perfect from the Aston Martin crew at Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Can they now hold this on colder tyres, trying to get them up to temperature on the outlap? That's where the Toyota can really make an impact.
That's exactly all in the pit stop, I'm afraid. 5 seconds lost stationary, 4 seconds lost to Weyrich, and absolutely clear that that's all been lost. And Benjamin Lariche here, the pit is shut, and he's missed it by 45 seconds. That's from a seasoned team like Speedcar. That is a critical error.
Yep.
Consani's going to get in. He's going to push as hard as he likes, but it's going to be in vain because there's a penalty coming their way.
That's a big miscommunication, isn't it? Because you've obviously got to try and time it right. Everybody else came in on the previous lap knowing that they didn't quite have the seconds left to be able to do so. And unfortunately, when you run the gauntlet trying to beat your opponents out of the pits, you've got to get those calculations right. If they'd have just looked at the timing screen, looked at the lap times, the kind of pace that they're setting, the best time that car has gone round in is a 2 minute 14 seconds. If you know that you haven't got that amount of time left before the pit window closes, why do you run the gauntlet? Why do you try and race it back?
The reason as a team manager, looking at the amount of cars that were coming into the pits at the same time, that's why I would have tried to avoid it, because there were so many cars and it would have been so busy to have a clean pit stop. But you look at that, you make the decision, you still need to consult the watch.
Yeah. It's the lesser of two evils. You know, what's worse, getting stuck in a huge traffic jam in the pits or losing the race? Because that's essentially what they're going to do with the penalty that's going to come their way. Very unfortunate.
Now get this, Lachnauer leads the race. Second position is our Scandinavian entry, the 290 of Henrik Holman. So they really are showing an incredible pace.
Well, is that going to update?
It's now updated with Shelley in second spot. Okay.
Yeah, but they're still in the top 10. They're still in the top 10. I mean, Lachnauer, you know, Consani has now technically taken the lead. He comes out of the pits and he has rejoined behind the two leading cars.
Yeah, scratch whatever I just said. They're down in 11th position. That was me getting well overexcited.
It's where they come across the timing line. It is a little bit confusing. But we will now continue with the race battle for the lead, and it is going to be Lachnauer versus Shelley for the race victory. The big question is going to be now, you know, we've got Hamar there in the 42, running in 4th position. They're looking good for the Pro-Am victory in front of Kronenberg in 9th position. The big issue is going to be, what can the Toyota do to eat away at that Aston Martin advantage? Because we didn't really get to see the raw pace of the Toyota in a full half-hour stint because of the safety car. Have they got what it takes to take it back to the Aston Martin up front? Can they beat them? Yellow flags going into the chicane. So yellow flags coming up to this particular chicane, and there is a 10-second penalty being given to Anthony Beltoise for speeding in the pits. That will be his teammate that did that, though, not him, because he hasn't done that. Now there's a cone in the middle of the circuit. That bodes not particularly well. So that'll be why we've got a yellow flag. It'll be because there's debris out on the circuit. So there hasn't been an accident as such, but there's been a couple of drivers pushing the limits a bit too hard, knocking the cone onto the circuit, and therefore we've got a yellow flag until that can be moved as the speed car flies off the road at Senior. It's so easily done. It's a blind apex, and you're trying to carry as much speed as you possibly can through that particular right-hander. It is very tricky to get right.
And all of those little errors, and they are errors, are being registered by race control, and they are registered alongside the other errors that same car has done. And if you do too many indiscretions, you'll get yourself a black and white, which is a warning flag. And over that, will then get a penalty for too many track warnings. In the Lamborghini race, we only saw last warnings. We didn't get to a point where there was anyone actually punished for too many track limit infringements, and we do have now confirmation that the number 3 pit window is under investigation. I think another investigation that has a slam dunk outcome to it.
Now, looking at the lap times of late, Konstantin Lachenauer in the Aston Martin has just done a 2:14.6. Etienne Shelley, 2:14.8. So the Aston Martin does seem to have the edge on the Toyota, certainly for the moment.
Between Lachenauer and Shelley, I think that would be the case. Lachenauer, of course, they're silver drivers, so you don't really have one driver is necessarily obligated to be faster than the other. They are effectively classed at the same thing, but no driver is exactly the same pace as another driver, like the ratings suggest. So Lachenauer with 2 years experience. Shelley's got lots of experience in that Toyota, to be fair, but that's how I would expect it to play out.
This is a very interesting little battle developing as Holland is watching this terrific battle scrapping on. This is Kronberg versus Jenkins. So Kronberg in the Porsche, who is obviously gunning for the victory in the Pro-Am category, running in 9th position, and behind him is Will Jenkins in the elite McLaren, who is going for overall honours. And they are trying to work their way further forward, but Holland is just getting himself in the mix there, watching it all unfold. I thought he was going to go for the McLaren then. He decided to bail out of it. We're just guests. We're just enjoying ourselves. We're invited.
Well, they're not guests. They are racing in their own championship.
Well, indeed, yes.
But as you say, Holland is his championship rival is some 17 positions back and 20 seconds behind. Such was their incredible pace in qualifying.
There's a car stopped. There's a car stopped on the far side. That looks like one of the McLarens in the background. I believe that's one of the elite McLarens that's come to a stop. It is, it's Emsen. Emsen has stopped. So unfortunately, the 77 McLaren of Tom Emsen, the elite McLaren, has stopped on the approach to Senior on the back of the Mistral straight. That is devastatingly bad luck for the elite McLaren squad, and that looks mechanical. So very unfortunate. Just saw it there in the background. You could only just make it out through the mist, but that is why we're yellow in Sector 3. And there it is. There's the car that's come to a stop. It is Tom Emsen. Very unfortunate indeed. That crew has had such a positive start to the season, tinged with misfortune, and it's come back to bite them the hard way again.
Difficult place to recover a car. There is a hole in the fence there, but you don't really want to be bringing the car against the flow of traffic. So will we need a virtual safety car to slow the field down just to allow marshals to safely move that car out the way? It is on the straight. In theory, it's a pretty low-risk area, but with 17.5 minutes remaining, will there be a little pause in action for these drivers?
And let's be fair, a virtual safety car isn't going to help out Etienne Shelley, is it? He needs an actual safety car if he's going to have a better chance of getting after Konstantin Lachenauer, because under a virtual safety car, the gap wouldn't change.
There's only 1 second between them. They're very, very close, and more likely to be affected by slower traffic as we come into lapped cars.
It's a good point. I mean, in terms of pace, there's not actually much between them over the laps either. It's all about who makes the mistake first, really. You're talking a few hundredths of a second from each lap to the next. So there isn't a massive difference between them in terms of raw pace. So that's obviously going to be in the back of Lachenauer's mind. He cannot afford to drop the ball for a second because he's got so much pressure from the Toyota behind him. But it doesn't affect anything on the run down the Mistral. It's 50-50 really as to whether you put a virtual safety car out for that. It does look as though the marshals are able to get there without putting themselves into too high a jeopardy.
Race control have noted that they're doing a live snatch there, so they've stated that they're not going to do any kind of safety car. They're covering it under yellow flags. Everybody knows that car is there. They would have passed it 2 or 3 times. And they're going to try and recover that under these waved yellow flags. Waved yellows in your racing handbook is slow down significantly and be prepared to stop.
It is, isn't it? Now, an incident between car 88, that's Weintraub in the Mercedes, and 5, that's Rubendale Sart at turn 15, noted.
Yeah.
We didn't see it, but there was definitely an incident there between those two.
Actually, a good little battle going on for second in Scandinavia.
Yes, it is, isn't
McLaren versus BMW.
And it is that gorgeous Alphab McLaren, which is very much in the Ronnie Peterson tribute band livery. Looks very cool in the French sunshine here. But there is a very tough mission on their hands because you've got Wilder in the BMW right in behind, trying to out-fox Roos in the hope that he can get him to do that, essentially, run wide out of the final turn so that he can get a better run and put him under even more pressure. Behind them, you've got Leandri in the Alpine in 31st position, who's hoping to compete for that top spot in the class. But interestingly, it's not actually Alban Veruti who leads the AM class now. It is the Alpine, number 55, of Alain Ferté. He currently now leads the AM category.
Wow, so yeah, Veruti's really struggled in this second half of the race, where you would expect the AM driver to be more comfortable with the pace of the race because the rest of them are AMs. Just doing a double stint effectively.
Yeah, you're not as fresh.
Definitely.
So there is the leader, Lachenauer. Still localized yellows for the live snatch at turn 10, but it's been going quite to plan and without too much drama, to be fair. There is the 42, the leading car in the Pro-Am category.
Oh, Hamon's always so strong. Championships in national at European level as well. Somehow still holds on to his grading because he's always so good and sits up there in 4th overall right now. Gregoire Gilbert, obviously long-time partner, has set that pace, but he's holding on, and he's always able to hold on well when he inherits the car from Gilbert. He's not like some of the other amateur competitors who are 3 or 4 seconds off the pace of their pro driver. Christophe is there and thereabouts.
Yet another star effort from the man who is currently in 7th position. He's been able to find an amazing amount of pace in the second half. The young man from Monterey in Belfast in County Down, Tom Edgar, has worked his way forward into 7th position. The Morrison Automotive BMW was definitely nowhere near that position at the pit stops, but he's done a great job. Don't forget, he's a very big talent, Tom Edgar. He was in British GT last year with the Speedworks Toyota Gazoo car, 4th overall. Did Ginetta Junior the year before that, 2 years in a row before that, actually. He's been a great competitor, and he's showcasing. He's got so much speed in this Morrison Automotive BMW. We're watching the cars just in front of them as Lenertz has now managed to get past Christophe Hamon. That's not a massive change in terms of the play, because even though Hamon is down to 5th position, he's still on for the Pro-Am victory without any issues there at all. It just means that Lenertz in the Mercedes is able to get closer to the top 3.
And that's why he didn't fight it. That's why he very much just let the door open, tried not to lose too much pace. When you get overtaken, it's quite easy to lose a couple of seconds, and ultimately he did lose about a second by being passed. But he still has a very comfortable advantage over Kronberg, who's the next in that category, down in 12th position.
So here they come again up towards us. And I tell you what, Joly, not only can he not challenge Lachenauer the way he wants to, he's actually losing ground to Consani in the speed car Audi. So that's not really what the Toyota wanted. You've got 12 minutes left on the clock. How much time are you going to lose?
Still have a penalty hanging over the number 3, though. We don't know how much they're going to be penalised by. So they are not actually 3rd in this race. I
mean, technically speaking, they can't think like that. They've just got to keep going and hope, for the best. But I suppose what it really causes is a potential issue for the Toyota squad if they are then passed by the speed car Audi and then potentially backed into the Mercedes behind them. That's the real concern, because Lenertz is going very fast indeed. There is Tom Edgar pushing hard to close up on Thiermann in the Alpine. So the young man from County Down doing a great job.
Yeah, so that 110 is the car that really lost out through the pit stop phase. Battling for starting on the front row of the grid, battling for 3rd position before the pit stops. Now down in 6th, Simon Thiermann. Remember, he was under such pressure, Paul Carhoop, in the first part of the race. He had 3 or 4 cars queued up, ready to pass him. So they all managed it in that pit stop phase, and he may lose another one here in the 110. They picked up a couple of points in the first weekend of action in Monza, with a 9th in the 2nd of the encounters. We actually only had 12 point-scoring vehicles across the 2 races. Usually, we almost see a completely different set of cars on race 1 to race 2. But such was kind of the way that the race meeting went, with the ability to overtake and a little bit cleaner racing, like we're seeing here. Not the chaos that GT4 sometimes provides with millions of safety cars and things like that. Clean racing, green flag racing. And that's all credit to the drivers, the teams, preparing correctly, and race control for managing the race and allowing the racing to happen.
So who are we likely to see in the podium positions once this race comes to a close? It's going to be the Santelok Junior Team Audi, Christophe Hamon, who is behind the wheel at the moment in 5th position. They're looking good for the Pro-Am victory. 2nd place for Max Kronberg, who is currently 13th in the WNS Porsche number 30. And then Loic Villiger, who had the double victory, of course, at Monza. They're looking for another podium in 3rd position. Loic Villiger is currently down in 16th position, just behind the championship leaders overall. Gabriele Piana in 15th position in the BMW. So that's the Pro-Am podium, looking pretty good at the moment. Then in the Am Cup, you've got Alain Ferté, 12th position overall in the Alpine, the Autosport GP car, number 55. He took the lead in the pit stops when that man, oh goodness me, Alban Veruti, drifting right off the road at Senior. That was so tricky to hold on to. And then behind him, you had Kronberg do the same thing in his Porsche.
Yeah, so Kronberg's lost 2 positions in 2 laps here in the Porsche.
He has indeed. I think he's got a problem developing, whether that's with tyres or whether that's with something else, but certainly Kronberg is struggling and he's going to fall into the clutches of Loic Villiger.
Yeah, he needs to be careful about that.
So they could lose out 2nd position in class, and that's not done. And actually, in the Pro-Am class as well, it's not even done for 3rd position, because if he loses out to Loic Villiger, he's then in danger of losing out to the east side Mercedes of Lucas Meyer. Meyer is not that far down the road either. They've got to be careful they hold on to that. Coming back to the Am, Alain Ferté in front of Alban Veruti, as we mentioned. The 3rd car in that class is the GPA Aston of Florent Grisot in front of Jean-Mathieu Leandri in the Chazelle Alpine. So they've still got a decent battle brewing. And then, of course, you come back to the Silver Cup, and we've got Konstantin Lachenauer in front of Etienne Chilly, and for the moment, Robert Consani in the speed car, although if they do get a penalty, it's the BCMC East Side Mercedes of Massa Lenertz that's going to inherit that rostrum.
So Kronberg lost 4 seconds on that last lap alone, and is now only 2 seconds away from Loic Villiger in 2nd in that class. So we have a little bit of a battle. If he loses another 4 seconds on this lap, then he will have fallen off the podium. Because we've also got Meyer in the number 20 machine, 18th spot, and he has been going fast in his 2nd stint as well.
We've had our first last warning. Car 21, that is Leandri in the Alpine. He's been given track limits 5 times, so if you do it another time, you really are in the doldrums and you're going to get a penalty for it, so you've got to be careful at this point. Will Jenkins is having a brilliant race. The McLaren is up to 8th position. He's now just got past Cugno in the Treble 1, the CSA Audi. So William Jenkins, who is the plug-and-play option at Elite, he's replaced Michael Creese, of course, for this weekend and jumped into the McLaren. Here he comes towards us. He's having a terrific race. He's up to 8th position, now just 9 seconds back from Edgar. But this is a great debut for Will Jenkins.
Yeah, it really is. That McLaren does look very strong here. It looks like it's well set up. Of course, we've got the McLaren Artura Trophy as well as a new addition to the program for SRO weekends. And that race is the next one on our program this afternoon. Not sure how much that will necessarily help our McLaren runners in this GT4 category, but they're not dissimilar cars. And certainly Elite Motorsport have got on top of that car. Consani now starting to give Shelley a bit of pressure. They need to get on the radio to Shelley and tell him, don't worry about Consani. He's definitely got some kind of a penalty. Don't compromise yourself too much by fighting with him. Only 0.3 of a second as they came over the start and finishing line that last time through, with just 6.5 minutes remaining now. Keeping an eye also on the battle for 2nd in Pro-Am with Kronberg and Villiger. Oh, it's very, very busy. And this is, contact!
Ah!
And that is the 22 car. So that's Schaap, who's just got past Cugno and Holman, being spun around by Holman.
That has not gone well at all, has it? And that's really thrown the cat amongst the pigeons as everybody tried to take avoiding action to figure out what they're going to do next. Is now diving up the inside. Where's the racetrack?
No, I think that Toyota's got a problem.
Yeah, I think so. I think they were trying to figure out whether there's an issue with it.
And that's the leader in Scandinavia. And you see, this is what we were talking about. Focus on your own race. Don't try and start fighting. There is the battle for 2nd in Pro-Am, just going past the Toyota. He didn't need to get involved in any kind of a scrap, because it looks as though he might cost himself the win in that race if that car does have a problem. And at the moment, he seems to be trying to get back up to speed again. But ultimately, there was no need to be scrapping with cars that are not part of your race.
Yeah, he just took a big gamble. And to be honest, that wasn't really a gamble that needed to be taken at all. Lachenauer in front of Shelley, Consani and Lennertz. Then Hamon in 5th position, Tillman, Edgar and Will Jenkins, last year's Ginetta GT5 champion, whose uncle, of course, Dave Jenkins, races in the British Truck Racing Championship.
So that's now changed the AM, hasn't it?
It
so
really has changed the AM.
Is leading AM. Fuerte's dropped to 2nd in that category.
Yes, indeed. So Veruti was able to sneak his way through in all of that. So now Veruti versus Fuerte, and that's
back through.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
So Veruti and Fuerte. Let's have a look at it again as they ran wheel to wheel. Fuerte keeping himself out of harm's way, and then Holmlund, bang! He just got up on the curb. And unfortunately, when you go on the curb, you try to come back to the racetrack. The Porsche was already there.
Well, this will be the angle, won't it? Because as he turns in, there's no space for the Toyota. So the other angle makes it look as though the Toyota's just pummeled into the side of the Porsche.
And that's how...
That angle is a completely different story.
And that's how Veruti got boxed in. So he's now right in on the tail of Fuerte again. So those two are now battling for the victory, Veruti and Fuerte. And it is very close indeed for Veruti, having managed to get through on Fuerte. Fuerte got held up in the Alpine.
Now get this. 5-second time penalty for Robert Consani for pitting outside the pit window.
5 seconds?
Only a 5-second time penalty. So right now...
Interesting.
Right now, he has a 6-second advantage over Lennertz.
That is interesting.
So he doesn't lose a position right now and will stay on the podium. I'm surprised by that Stewart's decision. That's a very nice, kind one for once.
It is, isn't it? It's not quite as draconian as we've tended to see. Consani is still trying to get into 2nd position if he can. They've got traffic to deal with for the moment, so Etienne Chilly is only really focused on trying to stay. There it is, 5-second time penalty. Pit stop out of the window. Now, not only is that going to be a bit of a relief for the Speed Car Audi team, all the other teams are now going to look at that and go, really?
Especially when some of the teams who pitted on that lap spent 5 seconds stationary in the pit lane because it was so busy. Look at Etienne Chilly's pit stop, 5 seconds over what it could have been. We don't know whether that was because of traffic in the pits or what the reason was for.
Look at how much Lachenauer was held up behind traffic. This has suddenly transformed the race because now Lachenauer has lost that 2-second gap he had over Etienne Chilly. He has now got the Toyota all over the back of him. Look at that. They've lost a massive amount of time in the traffic, and all of a sudden, the Toyota crew, the X-Swift squad, now think, do you know what? We can get him. We've got 2 minutes 40, 2 laps to go. We can make this happen. We can overhaul him.
He's lost 2.5 seconds on that lap alone. That's a huge amount of time to be caught behind traffic. Lachenauer maybe just being a bit too cautious around the traffic, or has that Aston Martin got a little bit of a problem? He was not really attacking into the point to the last corner of the lap. No, the car looks back up to speed, doesn't it?
I wonder if he thought maybe he had a bit more of a gap over Shelley than he first realised, and then when he came through the traffic, they suddenly said, no, that's the Toyota behind you. Put your foot down. Get it on the loud pedal.
Villager's got past Kronberg for 2nd in Pro-Am, by the way, so that has happened. I don't think Kronberg's going to lose further time, but he's really struggling on this stint. Again, losing another 2 seconds on that lap alone, Kronberg in the 30 Porsche. There's action wherever you want to turn your camera.
He's got to be careful not to lose another 7 seconds in these last 2 laps. That's where Mayer is going to come in and take the podium away from him, and Brichet is right behind Mayer. So there could be a bit of a squabble for the final Pro-Am podium place before the end of this race. Certainly Grisot is safe for the Am podium. That's not going to be too much of an issue, but it's definitely going right down to the wire now, isn't it? This is sensational stuff all the way through, and we're really getting a proper humdinger of a final battle as Consani decides, you know what, I want to go for Shelley. He's going to dive into Senior. Surely that's never going to happen, and it doesn't.
But it puts him off. It compromises him through Senior. What about Beausset? They both go for the first apex. Do they hug the inside line and protect? Kind of in the middle of the track. You could be tighter, but you would be slower. You could be wider, but you're opening the door. Consani's all over the back of the Toyota. It won't change the result necessarily unless he can find 5 seconds in 1 lap. But ultimately, he still fancies an opportunity to try and get past.
That's great news for Lachenauer. Konstantin Lachenauer has gone, right, the two of them can squabble like a pair of dogs. Excellent. Now we're just going to charge away. We'll take the win. We will not get involved in this little squabble, thanks very much. And we're going to stretch away so that we can be relatively comfortable on the final lap. So in the end, Shelley unable to attack. He's had to go on the defense instead. There is Verruti, having got past Ferté once again. And now he is stretched away. Cugnaud has actually managed to get past Ferté as well. So Ferté has dropped back, and that's great news for Verruti. It looks like it's going to be 3 wins out of 3 for the AVR Avatar Porsche.
There's been a bit of a mix-up there, hasn't there, on that last lap? Piana is also slightly out of position from where he was, and there's an overlap once more for second position. Consani to the outside. Shelley holds the inside line. Is really being hassled here for nothing, really, because there's that 5-second penalty hanging over the number 3 car, but it's providing us with great entertainment, and it's filling the mirrors of Etienne Shelley.
Etienne being told over the radio, I'm sure, look, the guy behind you has a 5-second penalty. There's no point fighting him. Don't tell that to Etienne Shelley.
And the reason is Consani and the gap to Lennert behind has dropped to 5.8 seconds.
It really has.
So Consani's giving him the hurry up and saying, I've got to create that 5-second gap, otherwise I'm off the podium.
Yeah, Linares has really been told, come on, you've got a faster car than that car in front of you. It's got a penalty. We can get the silverware here. Don't wait around, get on it. And so now that gap has come down from 6.7 in a couple of laps ago down to 5.8. And to be fair, Consani is really struggling now in that chicane. I wonder if he just pushed the tyres a little too hard on that last lap and a half. And now he's got to try and fight his way back. Where is Lennert? Lennert just did Sector 1 in 36.7 compared to Consani in 37.5, and he's quicker again in Sector 2. The podium may be about to disappear for the speed car Audi. I think the Mercedes crew in 4th place, the BCMC East Side car, may just be able to squeeze onto the podium. They've just got to keep it together in the final sector. Leandri has had a problem on the final lap by the look of it as well. He's lost about 5 seconds. We're not sure what happened there, but up in front, it is going to be the Racing Spirit of Le Mans Aston Martin. Despite losing a little bit of time in traffic at the end, the combined efforts of the two drivers have made it perfect. Victor Weyrich and Konstantin Lachenauer have come through. They didn't even finish a race at Monza. They're going to get the win this time in race 1 here at Paul Ricard. It's a brilliant victory for Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Aston Martin, they take the win. Shelley holds on in front of Consani for 3rd, but look back. We're going to see, has the BCMC Eastside Motorsport Mercedes got that gap down enough? No, they haven't. 5.2 seconds. The speed car Audi just hangs on to the podium as Christophe Hamon brings the Santonok Audi to take the Pro-Am victory, and the AVR Avatar Porsche of Albin Verruti will come home to take the AM victory for the 3rd time this year.
Wow, that was exciting.
That was a great race, wasn't it?
Consani holding on to podium by 0.2 of a, or 0.3 of a second, really, but it's really not very much.
Look at the debris on the racetrack. Something's happened on that final lap, hasn't it?
So Kronberg will be on the podium 3rd in class. Didn't drop any further than that, but did lose a position to Loic Vigier in Pro-Am. The AM, both the AM top 2 finished ahead of them.
We're not done. There's still battles going on.
Of course, we've still got 46 cars to get across the line.
Well, Leandri lost a lot of time in the number 21 Alpine, and they're all still squabbling away. This is Pirasuti trying to get one over on Taylor Hagler out of the final turn, just in case he can sprint into the line.
Because just ahead of them, of course, we've had our Scandinavian winner, which is Valde in the BMW. In the end, 5 seconds over the Alfab McLaren.
And Pirasuti did beat Hagler to the line. He got him by 1/10 of a second out of the final turn. Never give up. Never say die. You can sprint him and beat him to the line. So yes, indeed. Unfortunately, the absence of Holmland, who ended up dropping down the order, has ended up giving the Scandinavian win to, indeed, as you say, the 298 of Joachim Walder in the MBLR BMW, the Pro-Am Cup car.
So who's won AM in that category then? Because the top 3 are all Pro-Ams, so as the top 4 is as well. So the AM winner is the 211, which is Kalle Ward and Hakin Riknas in the Mercedes.
Yep, they did a fantastic job to do that as well.
And there is our winner then, Racing Spirit of Le Mans. Not Le Mans, but Lake Le Mans down in Geneva.
Just to confuse you.
Otherwise known as Lake Geneva if you're Swiss, but if you're French, it's Lake Le Mans.
So there we are. Weyrich and Lachenauer in the Racing Spirit Aston. What a fantastic drive that was from them. After the misery of Monza, it is an absolute change around, a turnaround of fortunes. They scored no points at Monza. They had a miserable weekend, and they have managed to bounce back in the best possible way. Ever since free practice 2 yesterday, they have looked like they have got victory written all over them. It's the first Aston Martin win of the GT4 European Series 2023 as well. And 3 different manufacturers now have won races: Audi, BMW, and Aston Martin. Bring on the 4th race of the week.
It was Aston Martin last year as well, with a double victory for Pro Sport Racing with Mike David Ortman and Hugo Sasser. So it was a preferred car last year as well. And of course, this actual Aston Martin took victory in the first 2 races of last year. So it is a car, it is a team that know how to win. Konstantin Lachenauer partnered with Gus Bowers last year. But he's proven that, well, actually, to be fair, it all stemmed from that insane qualifying performance, didn't it? 0.8 of a second faster than anybody else. Set them up for a very good day.
So it is victory for Racing Spirit of Le Mans, the Aston Martin in the victory ahead of the X-Swift Toyota, and somehow the speed car, Audi, hangs on for the 3rd spot on the podium. Then it is the BCMC Eastside Mercedes of Fulgencio and Lanertz, the leading car in the Pro-Am category. Christophe Hamon in the Santadoc Junior Team Audi. Then the Autosport Alpine of Simon Timan. And then Tom Edgar charging his way to 7th in the Borisson Automotive BMW once more. Will Jenkins, brilliant debut for Elite Motorsport McLaren in 8th place. Alban Veruti, unbeaten so far this year in the AM category for the win, in 9th position in the AVR Avatar Porsche. And the CSA Audi coming through for 10th place for Cugnaul. Then Ferté, 2nd in the AM. Gabriele Piana, championship leaders, 12th position this time. No points from this particular battle. So it's definitely going to be an interesting challenge. But of course, further down, you've got the 2nd place car in Pro-Am. That's Leclerc and Villiger, and the WNS Porsche coming home for 3rd in that category as well. 2nd in the AM category is the Autosport Alpine car of Hergon and Ferté. They came home 2nd. 3rd is the GPA Aston Martin of Jimenez and Grisot, who finished in 23rd position. A good run for the Scandinavians. It's the M. Bilar BMW in 30th place of Bouveng and Valde that come through in the Scandinavian victory, just in front of the Alfabi McLaren, that gorgeous Peterson tribute car of Roos and Behrens. And then the AM category car in that particular squad was the 221 of Ricky Nasson Ward, doing a fantastic job. So, a really exciting battle, and it's a victory for the Racing Spirit of Le Mans Audi. The winners are down with Gemma Scott.
Victor, you did the first part of that race there. You set up the position, but it wasn't easy with the safety car either.
No, it was very difficult to stay behind close to the Toyota. I tried to do my best, and I did a good stint, and Konstantin did a perfect work, so the result is very good, and thanks to the team and everybody who works on the car. I'm very happy.
Konstantin, right at the end there, the pressure was building behind you. I almost thought it was going to fall away on the edge of our seats, but the smile's still there.
It's still there. No, you definitely had to believe it until the end. I mean, that last few laps, catching the back markers and everything, was definitely not something I expected, to run wide, etc. But I mean, this is really the definition of teamwork. The team, the constructor, Aston Martin. My teammate, of course, who did an incredible first stint and qualified on pole, which is, yeah, I mean, it's just incredible. I can't believe it.
Congratulations, you better believe it. Winners.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You better believe it. What a great performance it was from the Aston crew. Textbook. They knew they needed to overhaul the Toyota at the pit stops. They didn't overdrive the car. They looked after the tyres in those first couple of laps out of the pits. Textbook.
A team based near Annecy, near Lake Le Mans, splits in the Swiss and the French borders. Actually, Victor Eric, if you recognise him, and how do I know that guy? I've seen him before, and you go skiing in Chamonix. He's actually a ski instructor in Chamonix. Hence, a few of the logos on the car being from the very well-known High Alpine Resort on the Italian-French border, home to Mont Blanc, highest mountain in Europe. And so, very mountain-spirited and very successful also in Porsche Carrera Cup France last year.
So it's going to be a win 2 for the crew from Audi.
Gus just proudly telling me the third win for you guys.
Yeah, so happy. To be honest, it's incredible. Third win this year. Tomorrow, yeah, we will start 16, but no, today it was a really good day for us.
C'était une super course, Christophe, juste tenu juste à la fin.
Oui, tout à fait. Au moins, ça a prouvé aux autres qu'ils n'ont pas le niveau pour rivaliser. À Monza, c'était différent. On a fait une fois deuxième, et maintenant c'est terminé. On ne quittera plus la première place. Et c'est une petite dédicace à la 36.
Merci beaucoup, merci.
I'm not entirely sure that one needed a translation. They're pretty happy. They've done a fantastic job, and they have absolutely deserved to take the victory in fantastic style. They definitely gave us plenty of excitement out there in Pro-Am, didn't they? And they back it up with a great charge forward after the victories for the Code Racing Development Alpine at Monza in both races. It's time for a new driver to emerge, a new driver pairing to emerge as Gilbert and Hamon get the job done with a fantastic run. Alban Veruti, however, has been doing his race single-handed, and he is with Gemma, having taken his third win of the year.
Alban, never an easy thing to drive a race alone without a second driver.
It was so complicated, it's quite hot. There is a lot of sun, it's so hot in the car. And then my teammate now is getting ready for the 24 of Le Mans, so I have to drive alone. We got 10-second penalty, but anyway, we had a good race, a good start, and fortunately...
Say thank you to the Porsche
and thank you to my friend.
And the Audi. Thank you.
Congratulations, well done.
Sure. Thank you very much.
That's a good reason to miss the racing here if we have to be testing at Le Mans.
Yeah, he's done well. But Alban Veruti has definitely held the fort quite well for the AVR Avatar Porsche crew, taking yet another fantastic victory. 3 out of 3 in the first 3 races of GT4 2023. What a terrific battle right from the outset. We had the get up and go of the Toyota charging through from third on the starting grid. Antoine Potti definitely had his breakfast this morning, charged through to take the lead at the first corner. And despite a little bit of flotsam and jetsam around, everybody kept it nice and clean. There was already going to be a ferocious battle. Victor Weyrich, the race-winning move potentially there, going around the outside at the exit of turn 2 to hold on to second place and keep the Toyota well within its sights. There were a few moments around the course, but after the safety car period for that one incident, there were a few battles. Voisin versus Day ended up with both Astons taking a little bit too much damage. But there were some fantastic races and so many drivers giving it wheel-to-wheel action. Some great drama, some great battles. Through the pit stops, Potti handed over to Shelley before we had Weyrich hand over to Lachenauer. But there was a bit of a moment, unfortunately, for the Scandinavian Toyota Gazoo Racing Sweden car. They tangled with Nathan Schaap in the Allied Porsche. It didn't quite go their way. But there were great battles all around the course. This is how we had Konstantin Lachenauer lose ground. He ran wide in the traffic and almost lost it in the final couple of laps. But despite the pressure from the Speed Cafe Audi and the X-Swift Toyota, a brilliant run from Lachenauer and Weyrich. They didn't finish a race at Monza. They've taken the first win here at Paul Ricard. Tomorrow, there's another chance to make it happen, but it's going to be a very exciting race, whatever happens in the second GT4 encounter tomorrow.